please mute your audio, except for when you're going to ask a question, and feel free to ask a question whenever you'd like to. You can also use a chat bar, and up in the upper right-hand corner there on most of your devices, there's a chat with everyone icon. And if you type in there, it'll pop up and we can see your question. So that's a great way to do it, because that basically puts your question in the queue for me to make sure I get to. So feel free to use the chat, but also feel free to just jump in there. But make sure your audio is muted. If you're calling in, you may want to mute the actual phone call so you can hear the audio, but we don't hear you. And I'll keep letting folks in as they come. We've got 32 people on right now, so that's pretty good. And again, we are recording this meeting, so hopefully that's okay. If it's not, you might just want to mute your video too, and that way you don't appear on the recording if you don't want to. All right, well, let's get started. Thank you, first of all, to everybody for joining us. We are here today to talk about the reopening of Creekside Elementary School and in Franklin Community Schools in general, because many of the guidelines for our reopening come from our school district and our county as well. We're joined by several central office administrators, Dr. Clendenning, our superintendent's on here, Dr. Warland, assistant superintendent's on the call as well, and also Mr. Jeff Sewell, director of operations, so they can be here to help answer questions that are either district-wide or just specific to them, or they can jump in anytime too. So again, that as you have questions, but I'll get started. I'm going to try to just do a general overview. I don't want to try to cover the entire plan. I'm happy to answer anything from the plan or not, but I also don't want to bore you entirely if you've already read and poured over the document that is the district document and the Creekside document. I'm sure everyone has spent hours and hours reading that and enjoying it. It is very thorough, which is important to us. We've been working hard on that. So I'll get started. I mean, first of all, we know this already about this crazy time with this pandemic, COVID-19. You know, we can't believe that we're going to be able to completely keep COVID-19 from ever entering Creekside or being with us at all. The idea of this and the idea that we've been working on with the health department is the steps we can take to school as safely as we possibly can and keep COVID-19 at bay as best as we possibly can. And so the plan that we've all put together and continue to work on is that plan. We want to be able to do school safely. We want to be able to achieve all of the goals that we have for school every day, regardless of a pandemic. We want to be able to do those things. And so that's what we're right now working towards. The good news is we're ready for an on-time start. August 5th is a Wednesday, and that will be the first day of school. It will be in person, and we're excited about that. You'll be having more and more dates pushed out to you as the summer progresses, but Meet the Teacher Night is on. That will be on the Monday before school starts, so that's August 3rd. And at Creekside, we've always done it that way, or at least in the last 11 years. We have done that event on that Monday. Now, it's going to look a bit different this year. We're going to do it outdoors instead of indoors, and teachers will all have little tents all around Creekside. We'll stagger arrival of families by last name, so that way you can come meet all of your children's teachers and get information, ask questions, and we'll do that outside where it's a little safer as far as having that many folks, coming onto the Creekside grounds. So look for information on that, but we are very excited about that Meet the Teacher Night. We're exploring ideas how to make that really fun, and so those are forthcoming, but we are going to do that event because we know it's important for students and for families to be comfortable before the school year gets started. And then, of course, school starts on August 5th. And so I'll talk about some things that are going to look different. Many things will be the same. I mean, the things that are going to be the same are things like your child's going to have a teacher. The teacher is going to spend a lot of time with your child in reading and math and all the other subject areas. Your child will still have recess and lunch and special area classes. Really, the offerings that Creekside provides will really not change very much, if at all. What may change is the way that we structure our day or the way that we are able to deliver instruction, and that is Some simple steps like we're going to keep kids more into their classrooms as compared to moving around the hallways as often as they normally do during the day. Desks will be in rows, and that will help us do at least a little bit of social distancing within the classroom. Now, kids will still be able to receive small group instruction. They'll still be able to work with the teacher directly. We will just use some safeguards whenever we're going to do that. We have items like plexiglass windows. We have obviously face masks. Things like that will help us still be able to deliver that when social distancing is impossible. But we are going to have the kids stay more contained within their classroom. So that way the group of folks that they're interacting with is much smaller than it otherwise would be. Passing periods, things like that, as we walk through the hallways, as we go to lunch or PE or recess, we will just take more care to make sure the hallways are clear. So there'll be one ways. We won't have classes passing each other like we normally do. Restroom breaks will be coordinated a little bit better so that we don't ever have two classes arriving at the bathrooms at the same time. So these are some simple steps that we'll take. Talking about face masks, because I know that is a thing that folks think about. We are going to be using face coverings or face masks. Not every moment of the day, certainly, but we will need to use them, particularly when we are not able to social distance or we're not able to keep kids, from being, really close to each other or close to an adult. Someone like me, I'll have to wear my face mask probably all day because I'm moving around within the school too much to not have my face covered, both for my own protection and other people's protection. In fact, I have my mask on right now, as you can see, and I got a Cincinnati Reds one as I'm a huge Reds fan. So, speaking of that, we are going to do some very fun things with masks because I know that's not something, I don't enjoy wearing a mask. I don't think anyone does. But we're going to do some fun things like have little Creekside masks for the kids. Certainly they don't have to wear that one if they don't want to. They can wear a different one. But we're going to provide those for students. We want them to get a kick out of wearing. And then we're going to have, yeah, thank you, Travis. I'll get to that question here in a moment. And then we're going to be able to have lots of times where kids can not have masks on as well. So for example, times where kids probably will not wear masks. Times like recess, we're going to do recess every day as we always do. It'll be outside. And kids will not wear their masks at that time. We're going to do lunch, and kids won't obviously not wear their masks during lunch. We'll go ahead and and Isis, I'll get to that. Thank you. That's a good one. We're not going to have kids wear their face masks, probably every single minute of the day in the classroom. Now, some of that will just depend on the kind of instruction that's going on, but we know that kids will need little breaks from those, and we'll definitely provide those breaks as well. We will also offer a lot of grace. Nobody is going to be yelling at a student because their mask slipped off their face or they dropped it or they lost it or whatever else happened. Just as teachers have grace with tying shoes at the elementary level, and with kindergartners coming out of the bathroom with their pants still down, because believe it or not, they do that, we will help kids with their masks. It's not going to be a big deal for us. And we're going to have extras in case something happens or a wardrobe malfunction and a mask breaks. We can be able to help kids with that. But covering our face is going to be an important, one of the important things that we do here. And that's something that we've talked about as a county and with all the health department officials, and we're going to follow those guidance. And I think it'll help us stay safe until this whole crazy pandemic, blows over. Let me get to a couple questions here because I see a few of them rolling in. Travis, you asked about the death rate of COVID-19 and the age appropriate. I am not a health official, so I wouldn't want to answer that. I'll toss that over to other folks here after a bit. That might be more of a health department question, and we do work with them. But I wouldn't want to try to go out on a limb with a stat like that one. Isis asked about, do parents need to keep an extra clean mask in their backpack in case the one they have gets dirty? Yes. We are going to provide at least one face mask for each student, and we may end up being able to do more. But yes, it would be a good idea if parents have the means to have a couple of face masks, so you can wash one and have it be ready for the next day. We will have extras at school. It won't be an unlimited supply, but we will have extras. So that way, just like if a student now has an accident during the day and their pants are wet, we have extra pants. Now, we do run out occasionally, but we will have extra masks. So we can help out with that too. Trendy Kids TV asked about seeing a classroom setup. That's a good question, actually. We're going to be doing some virtual looks at our school. Many of you are familiar with Creekside, and it looks the same inside as it always has, but the desks do look different, the way they're aligned. So we will do some virtual looks at classrooms as we get closer to the year. So yes, we will be able to do that. And then Brooke asked about when kids are not wearing masks, where will the masks be? Will they be disposable, reusable? They will probably be in their pocket or around their neck like mine is, would be best. We want to keep them handy. It'd be best if kids don't lay them down because, of course, we know what's going to happen. They're going to get confused with someone else's. So I think probably a pocket or just let it hang around the neck is probably easiest. But we'll let teachers work with kids on that. Our elementary teachers are really good at helping kids with behaviors and managing that and helping them, make successful choices. So we'll work on that with them. Keep the questions pouring in as you have them. Because I don't mean to just talk the entire time, but I probably will end up doing that. So keep them coming in, and I'm happy to respond. So I've talked about masks because I know that's a bit of a hot button issue. It's a bit of a concern. I am choosing to take the approach for myself that I'm wearing my mask to help protect others from me in case I'm an asymptomatic carrier. I don't think I have COVID-19, nor do I think I've had it, but I don't know that for sure. And so I'm wearing the mask just in case I might. And for me, particularly, just speaking personally, I'll be moving around the school a lot, and heaven forbid I have that infection. I do not want to spread it. So if I can wear a mask, wash my hands frequently, I'll have to be careful about, touching surfaces, giving kids hugs, things like that. But if I can take those simple steps and help protect all the folks around me, then I will do that. And so that's the way I'm thinking about masks. And that's the way to approach it with all of our students. Here at Creekside, we talk about we are family. It's our motto. We live it. We talk about it every day. And really wearing a face mask fits into that for us very, very specifically. Because we are a family together while we're here at school. We want to look out for each other, just like we talk about being a bucket filler, not a bucket dipper. We want to fill other kids' buckets. We want to make people feel good. And so wearing a mask is something we can do for our neighbor. We don't really do it for ourselves. It doesn't really filter the air well enough for that. We do it for other people. So that's the approach we'll be taking with that. I think our kids will buy into it. Kids are wonderful about trying to help others. They just instinctively want to do that. A kid drops their art box and there's almost a scramble to who can get it picked up for that kid first. Sometimes it gets a little dangerous because heads are almost bonking because everybody's diving to help that child pick up their art box. So I think that approach will help our students understand masks. Kim, you asked about how will recess and lunch work? Very good question. So I'll talk about lunch first. We will be having lunch. Right now, the thought is we're going to be having lunch in the cafeteria and in the gymnasium here at Creekside. Every school may be a little different with that, and our plans may change as things work out. But we'd like to still be able to have lunch in those two locations, because then we would be able to keep kids socially distanced more because they will not have masks on during lunch, of course. And so our cafeteria could probably hold 2 classes safely, and the other 3 classes would be able to go into the gymnasium, which is a huge room, and we can set up tables and have assigned seats. So that is what we're looking at for lunch. Right now, I think I saw a question about lunch being a grab and go. Our lunch options are changing. Unfortunately, we will not be able to offer the salad bar this year, or at least until this pandemic is over. We will be offering, of course, lots of fruits and veggies. The lunch standards haven't changed for fresh food and quality food for our students. But it will be more prepackaged. That way kids can take their lunch and then walk to their seat. They will have assigned seats. That way they sit by the same student each day. And then also, but they will be by students. They will be able to talk and have a social time during lunch. It won't be as many kids in the cafeteria like normally we would have about 125 students or so in our cafeteria. That won't be the case. We'll have all of our students spread out between two much larger rooms. Let me get to some other questions here. Melissa asked about the prepackaged lunch. Let me talk about breakfast very briefly. Breakfast won't change much for us here at Creekside. We already offer it as a pick up and go to the classroom, and we'll do that again. Now, we may not have the kids pick it up out of the cafeteria themselves. We may actually deliver it to the rooms for them, but breakfast will be an option for all students. It's optional. You do not have to have breakfast. And then lunch, like I said, will be a pick up and go. And of course, kids can bring their lunch from home as they always have been able to. Isis asked about names on masks. Yes, that'd be a great idea in some way, even just an initial or a little smiley that denote your child knows what that looks like. That'd be a great idea. Let's see, Trendy Kids asked about, of course, there will be speech vision difficulty with a mask. Is class size changing? Our school board has set a class size limit of 25 students, and that's an average across the building. But no, we're certainly not increasing class sizes at all. So there won't be a class size change. Amy asked about bus situation. Right now, and I haven't talked about busing much. Let me talk about that in a moment, if that's okay. I will come back to that question. That's an important one. Michael asked about faculty and staff being periodically tested for COVID-19. We're going to rely heavily on the Johnson County Health Department for that guidance, and we will follow their guidance and what they ask for us to do. So we're going to take those steps.
Dr. Hyden, can I jump in there on this one for a second?
Our superintendent, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for popping into today's noon session, talk about reentry. Just a couple things. We continue to work with Dr. Mormon, who is the lead Johnson County health official, as well as Betsy Swearingen. So looking at, a lot of the protocols and procedures that we did put in place, we had to have approved by Dr. Mormon. Regarding the testing, we're going to have everybody every single day ask that you do a self-check. We're going to say, how are you feeling? Did you have any symptoms over the night that would be possible that you could have contracted COVID-19? We are not going to be testing everybody for temperatures. And talking to Dr. Mormon and other experts, that is a symptom, but it's not always the leading symptom. And obviously, it'd be prohibitive if we had thermometers and different things, try to get every kid in, both at Creekside and throughout the 5,100 kids in our district. So we're going to ask people to really self-monitor that. I do know that in talking to Dr. Mormon, testing continues to be a large conversation throughout both Johnson County, the state, and the nation. We want to continue to work with them to get testing in a more rapid fashion, and so that we get the results back, because we are going to follow the CDC guidelines in terms of isolation if a person does come down with symptoms, as well as if someone is exposed. One of the things that they'll probably come up in a question, so I'll go ahead and answer that. When we do get a COVID-19 positive in the district or at Creekside Elementary, we will not be able to release that person's name and information. The state is responsible for contact tracing of COVID-19. So it's their job to do that. And they've hired 500 people to help with that. It'll be Dr. Mormon's job then to continue to work with us on how we share that information and move forward. So I know a lot of people are going to say, well, schools, why don't you tell us? But we are bound by HIPAA, which is the Health Privacy Act, and we're not going to be allowed to do that. So I'm going to jump in on one more question. I saw Mr. Ward ask, who decided on masks? I'll just say that after talking with Dr. Mormon and looking at the recommendations where we could not be socially distant, that the final decision was both from a recommendation up to me, and I presented to the board with the help of my central office team. So I guess if you're looking for one person that says who's going to do masks, I'd be that person. We're trying to honor people throughout this journey. I know in talking to Dr. Mormon, one of the things that he said that the research is showing now is that masks are actually being a better barrier than even hand washing at times. There was a study out of Germany that indicate that, as well as some other things. We're just trying to be good stewards so that we can do 180 days of school. And if masks will help us on the bus, when we walk into the building and in the hallways, then we want to do that. We want to respect everybody. We're also wanting to respect everybody that in giving these plans out from moms and dads. You make the best decision. You're the best educator. If you've ever heard me speak in terms of this, you're the best educator, administrator your kid will ever have. It is your decision on how best to help deliver that educational opportunity for your students. If you don't feel like that we can do that, we are offering a virtual option for parents this year. And one of the things that you could do is choose that virtual option, and then at semester make another decision if you decide it's going to change. But those are the things that we're doing. So if someone says, I really don't want my kids to wear a mask or whatever, this is why the plan was put in place now, to give you guys 3 or 4 weeks, to give parents 3 or 4 weeks to talk about it and make that decision what's best for you. We want to partner with parents. We love that partnership. As you know, we have 5 guiding principles, and collaboration is a big one. And this is just one more thing that we're going to continue to collaborate to make the best decision for us. So hopefully I've answered that question regarding masks, and I'll throw it back to Dr. Hayden.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Clendenning. We've had a couple other questions come in about the car rider line and pickup. Yes, those will remain the same. Our car rider line times may widen because we may have more folks drive their kids to Creekside, so we might have to start the line earlier. Obviously, years and years past, we've always offered grace. If our car line causes someone to be tardy, we don't count them tardy. That won't change. But we may have to lengthen the time, but the car rider line process will still work really well. Kids will need to put their mask on as they get out of their car and come in. And the reason for that is because they're going to be walking down the hallway, and that will be a time, although we'll keep traffic all flowing one direction, there will be all kinds of kids all over the place as they walk in. And so we definitely need masks on at that time. As they get out of the car and as they get in. Basically, we're in there in the halls, they're going to have to wear their masks. But the car rider line pickup drop off should be the same this year. A question was asked about birth certificates and shot records, particularly for kindergartners. I know we don't have those yet. That will come as the year gets started. We have some time on that. If you want to be, ready to go, you can have a copy of each ready. But it'll be okay. Otherwise, we'll reach out to you and ask for you to send us copies. If you don't have copies, we can make a copy for you and send you back the original. We only need a copy. We certainly don't need an original birth certificate. So we'll be doing that. But for now, just hold on that. That's a lower priority for us right now. Let me see. There have been some other things come in. Nick asked about after-school programs, attendance criteria, and then virtual school if they become ill. Those are great questions. After-school programs, if we can still offer it under our guidelines, we would like to still do that. That will be a club-by-club decision, but we are certainly going to try. Attendance criteria changes. There's several. Yeah, we have several changes in our attendance policy criteria. One thing is like Dr. Clendenning talked about, we're going to ask for folks to be even more vigilant than normal about fevers, about other symptoms, and we're going to ask that those kids stay home. By doing that, of course, we need to have more grace on attendance because, as you know, if your child normally, if they miss 7 days unexcused or 10 days unexcused or on up, you receive letters and all that, we'll be able to dial back those a little bit. We will still ask for communication, though. So if your child stays home, we'd like to know why, so that way we can document that. And obviously, if you have a doctor's note or something like that, just send that in, and we can excuse that absence then.
Dr. Hayden, can I jump in on extracurriculars for a second as well? Just wanted to let everybody know that we are going to continue to provide extracurricular opportunities, K-12, the best that we can. And as like Dr. Hayden said, it'll be case-by-case decision. One of the things, though, that we are requiring is that the student be in school learning to participate in extracurricular opportunities. And the reason is that when we look at providing this virtual experience or letting mom and dad decide, if the health issue is saying, hey, I need to not come to school, we just feel like it's best that continue for all activities that we do. And the normal way we do school is have everybody in person. So we see it, and I see it as counterintuitive that if we stay home and then at 3:30 you come out and intermingle with all these same kids that have been involved with school and that. So we're just trying to be consistent around that. I will tell you that also is following the lead of most school districts in terms of that. But if you want to participate in extracurriculars, we're just asking you to come to school to be a part of it. But as I said earlier, parents, you make the best decision for you and your family.
Yep, thank you. Let's see, another question from Nick, and actually, I think I saw it on there as well from someone else. Virtual school, if a student becomes ill, yes. Particularly if it's going to be an extended absence, then yes, we should be able to have a virtual option. If your student's just going to miss a day or two because of more of a common cold or something like that, or a stomach bug, then you probably wouldn't make that switch. Then we would handle it like we always have with normal absences. But yes, if your child is going to miss an extended time, let's say 2 weeks, either because of they're ill or maybe someone in the home is ill and they're quarantined with the family, then yes, we should be able to offer that. Melissa asked about art supplies. That's correct, Melissa. We're not going to be sharing supplies. School supplies now, as they are, most teachers didn't share them. Some people did. Some teachers did, but they won't be this year. All kids will keep their own supplies throughout the year. All students will have their own Chromebook. That's something that was asked earlier, but in the past it's been second grade up. Now it's going to be K and 1 as well. So all students will have a Chromebook. It'll be their own, and they won't share it with anyone else. We don't have a computer lab anymore because really the computer labs are in the classroom now, since everyone has a Chromebook device. So, and that device will come home every night and it will come back to school the next day. That way you have it just in case you need it. And then what additional supplies could be helpful for art? We'll be reaching out and asking for some of those donations as the time comes. We also have funds right now where we're buying things that we know we're going to need. But I appreciate that question. We've also worked with the Creekside PTO. They've been, of course, awesome forever. And they continue to step in and help us in so many ways as they have before anyway. So not mentioned yet, speaking of PTO, Creekside already has water bottle fillers thanks to our PTO. And so our water fountains will not be in use, but the water bottle fillers will be. So we're asking for kids to bring a water bottle to school so that way they can fill it. They can bring it filled or they can fill it here or both. And if kids don't have a water bottle, we'll get them one. We're going to order some. But some kids have their own they like to use, and so we'll let folks bring their own if they'd like. But hydration is really important, and so we'll make sure all kids have access to drinking water all day as well. Okay, let me see. Okay. I'm just making sure I haven't missed an earlier question here. Okay, Sarah asked Dr. Clendenning and Dr. Warland about the percent of interest in remote learning on the parent survey. I know not all the data is in yet on that, but is there anything you'd like to share on that or the virtual option you discussed earlier?
Yeah, I'll jump in here, Dr. Hayden. This is Brooke. We had approximately 61.3% of our entire population respond to the survey. So the data that we currently have right now, about 20% or so of those families have indicated at this time an interest in online learning. So we're using that data to make decisions about how we're going to handle virtual learning and structure that. At this time, we do know, and we will send additional information out, we hope on Friday of this week, that for our elementary students, so our K through 4 students, we will be delivering a virtual option, as Dr. Clendenning and Dr. Hayden mentioned earlier. That option will include instruction by Franklin Community Schools educators and teachers. So it's important that people know that. It looks like at this time, we will be taking students from across our elementaries, putting together our kindergartners in first grade, and then you'll have your second grade and your third and fourth grade. So they will be in a course together in a virtual environment. Now, I will say that it's possible these numbers will change over the course of the next 3 weeks. And so we are remaining nimble, and we will adapt as we need to. But I hope that answers the question, Mark, as you see it there.
Yeah, thank you. Couple more questions about a case for the Chromebooks. I believe that Mr. Sprout, our technology director, already has that covered, parents. So don't buy a case. We've got those for those new Chromebooks, and they are touch screens. So I think that'll really be great for our younger students. They can use the keyboard and the trackpad and or the touch screen. And we do have cases for those. Those Chromebooks are pretty tough too, just in general. I've been impressed with mine. It's taken a few hits and it's still going. So that was a nice device. Trinity Kids
Dr. Hyden, just true. If you could remind parents, please plug in your Chromebook nightly.
Yeah.
One of the things that we are taking away are the power stations that were in classes if we had classroom sets. And we're asking parents, please, if you could help us plug in. And if that doesn't happen, yes, we'll have a few plugins in each classroom, but your help would be very appreciative.
Yeah, thank you. And then asking about the playground and PE to be cleaned between classes. Well, yes, definitely. PE is going to be outside for the most part. I don't know if I've mentioned that in this particular chat. But outside, we know from the recommendations being presented to us is that it's safer outside for all of us in general as far as transmission of COVID-19. So, recess will be outside, as it always is anyway, weather permitting. And phys ed will be outside as well instead of the gymnasium. Part of that's because the gym will be used for lunch a big portion of the day, but also because it's safer when you're breathing hard to be outside. And again, our commitment to exercise and physical fitness has remained the same. We will definitely, any equipment in phys ed that is used will have to be cleaned. We have some new different sprays and things that we've purchased that are effective and also safe to be touched. And so we'll be doing that. And then the playground itself, one strategy we're taking is at every entrance point to Creekside, therefore exit point as well. We have hand sanitizing stations. And so obviously as kids go out to the playground, they'll be taking a shot of sanitizer to wash their hands on the way out or to sterilize their hands on the way out as best they can. And then on the way in, the same thing. We will also do a significant amount of hand washing throughout the day because soap and water still works great and probably better anyway. So we'll be doing that as well. And so that's hopefully that answers your question about the indoors. Michael asked about if a student's required to take an extended absence, like 2 weeks, will they join the online class for those 2 weeks or continue to work with their classroom teacher? Dr. Warland, do you want to speak a little bit more to that? Because that plays into that virtual option as well.
It does. And I'm glad that we clarified this as well. At this time, Michael, the thought is that student will continue to be part of the class they're assigned to. So if you're assigned to a second grade classroom at Creekside, your student, you will continue to be part of that classroom. And we're looking at ways to ensure that our teachers have the resources they need to connect with that student. So I hope that helps.
Yep. Thank you. Let's see. I have another question here about back to school night. And I did touch on that earlier, but we're going to do it on Monday, August 3rd, and it's going to be outside with teachers all around the Creekside grounds instead of in the building. And because folks won't be able to see the classroom, we'll do some virtual tours and things like that to make up for that deficit. But we'll make sure kids and families are very comfortable with their child's teacher, before the school year starts, just like we always have. And then about the teacher requests, I did those back in May. There was a window of time where that was open, and it was on Facebook and Twitter and email. And the teachers have actually since then worked really hard to create those classes. So that time for a teacher request is closed. But if you have a particular issue or concern, feel free to email me, and I'll certainly talk with you about it because we want to make sure we get all students into a great class. Matthew,
Dr. Hyden,
Oh,
I want to jump in and I want to go back. Mr. Ward asked about the science behind the masks. And one of the things that we're having throughout this conversation of COVID-19 is who do we look to in terms of getting our answers and results? And I just want to let everybody know that the school system is looking to Dr. Mormon. Dr. Mormon is the person that we're going to seek our guidance and counsel from and get the approval. In terms of actual science, I think you look at CDC, you can look at the Indiana Department of Health. And as I mentioned, Dr. Mormon shared with me, there was a research study out of Germany. But ultimately, I think in any sciences, you're going to look to see some that say yes and some that say no. One of the things that we know and looking at that is we need to have one expert that helps us in this journey. And by law and by definition, it's going to be Dr. Mormon who's going to help us throughout this school year in making that decision. So hopefully that helps answer Mr. Ward's, what science did we look at from a district's perspective that I read. I really relied on the counsel of Dr. Mormon on that side of life. So,
yeah. Matthew asked about PE during the colder months. We're approaching that as the time gets closer to that. So we've talked about this throughout the spring. This is a very fluid situation. So luckily we've got a few months. And hey, maybe with Indiana weather lately, we've got more than a few where it doesn't get so cold so quickly. So we will have a plan for PE once the months start to get colder. Right now, of course, we have to think about rain, although lately it really hasn't rained, but very often. But PE would be in the classroom at that point. And recess would be the same thing. That's how we've always handled recess on rainy days. Unfortunately, we have to be in the classroom. We've used the gymnasium in the past, and should that option become available, certainly we would take advantage of that. But we'll have to rely on the recommendations before we make a change like that. So for right now, PE will be outside. And let's just hope the weather's great. Yeah, Sarah, you asked about the virtual option. Absolutely. You'll have the opportunity to meet the teacher. That'll be something where communication, really communication is key in all aspects, whether it be in person or virtual. And so you will have that opportunity. And I'm sure that we will use all of our technology like Google Meet and other things to make those meetings happen. Yeah, good question. And this is maybe the question I get asked the most is getting kids things back from last year. Right now at Creekside, we have a couple different plans working. We've got everything bagged. So anything that your child had in their desk or their cubby has been individually bagged and labeled with your child's name. The logistical difficulty is trying to get that out to everybody. And it would be easy for one family, but when you're talking about probably 300 families plus, that becomes very difficult to manage. So we're going to give those back. My plan right now is at back to school night, your child's teacher will have their item from last year that you can take home or the first day of school. We also have yearbooks that folks purchased. Those will be distributed then as well. And then we also have spring pictures. Those just very recently came in, and those will be distributed as well as any other item that's owed. If a student doesn't come back to school or maybe chooses the virtual option, then we will likely mail it to you. So we will make sure that you get your items back. Everything has been bagged and accounted for, so that shouldn't be difficult for us at back to school night. Medicine is different though. Mrs. Christoph, our school nurse, has set up a couple evenings upcoming in mid-July. We will be emailing everybody with those times and days, and she will be handling getting all medication that's in our clinic home to those families in July. I think it's the week after next. So we want to do that before back to school night. And so hopefully that'll take care of all of that.
Dr. Hyden, can I talk about transportation for just a second?
Yes, please.
And we have Mr. Sewell on here, but a couple changes this year that people need to really be aware of in regard to transportation. So, Mr. Sewell, do you want to take the one-stop policy and talk about that to parents, please?
Yes, you bet. One of the things that Dr. Mormon has asked us to be prepared to do is help the health department with contact tracing. And so all of our schools are going to have all of our school buses are going to have assigned seats similar to our classrooms, so that we can kind of really account for those groups of kids and who they've been in close contact with. With that, we're not going to be able to have the same pattern of the stops that children are using and the buses they're using change from day to day like we have accommodated in the past. So every family will be asked to identify one morning pickup location and one afternoon drop-off location that we will use every day throughout the year. Now we understand their family situations change, and there may be a need to make a semi-permanent change to that information, and we're glad to receive those and make those adjustments. But we just simply cannot have families using multiple pickup or drop-off locations throughout the week like we have in prior years.
In addition, also this year, if you had like your friend, your son or daughter wanted to have their friends come over for a night to stay and have dinner and whatever, and we would have provided that transportation home. We are not going to be able to have other kids ride the bus this year. So if you are planning to have a get together after school that requires your son or daughter to be with other kids, the school bus will not be able to be that option. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that as well. So we're really just trying to get kids to and from school with that opportunity to move forward. And speaking of visitors, this is also a conversation across the district. What are we going to do about visitors, and how are we going to help mitigate that virus potential? So one of the things we're doing this year is really limiting the number of visitors into the building. We are hiring two clinic assistants at most schools. So you have the school nurse and one person else. And what we're going to ask is that when parents need to have their son or daughter picked up, we have more like a concierge service where that person will help walk that student out to your car as opposed to coming in and signing them out. So we'll still have to sign out. We'll still make sure it's the same person who's responsible for that child, but it just won't be coming into the building. We are going to just try to limit the number of interactions we have until we get the vaccine and or herd immunity that we can just all move back to a normal life existence. So, in a perfect world, that's just through this semester. But you know what? We are looking at these things that impact all year. So we love people to come and help. We do, we definitely do. But this year is a different year. We want to provide that learning environment so that we have 180 days of in-person school. And all the things that we're doing to kind of modify the school day or the look of the building or look inside a classroom is designed, as Dr. Hayden said, not to stop the virus from coming in, because that's an impossible thing. We can't do that. But we can limit the mitigation opportunity, and that's what we're trying to do with the visitors. So if you have a question about that, you need to contact Mark. If there's something that you say, hey, I need to get in and see a teacher. Now this excludes like case conferences. If you need to meet with the teacher on that, we'll definitely have you meet with them either virtually or in person. If we do things in person, it will be with social distancing so that we can make sure that we have those things set up. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the bus situation. If you have questions, contact Dr. Hayden or Mr. Sewell on those, as well as visitors. So thank you, Dr. Hayden.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Could I add to that just very briefly? Our bus capacity is reduced significantly, so we'll only be able to have 2 students per seat instead of 3 students per seat. And so we are encouraging families that can bring their students to school, or to maybe walk their students or bike with their students to school, to get them to school by other ways to help us with that. We are going to continue to run our buses, and we'll make multiple trips as we have to make sure everybody gets to school eventually. But we will need your patience with that in those first few days of school, both with the busing services and with the car rider line. And again, if you can bring your students to school, that would definitely help us.
Yep. Thank you. Couple other as I'm going down my list here of all the different plans, I wanted to mention special education. So this is students with special needs or an IEP. Special education instruction will continue on. IEPs, as written, have not changed. The requirements under special education law has not changed. And so we will continue with that. We'll be doing small group instruction, just as we have in the past as well. And we'll be having our annual case conference meetings with you to go over our goals and progress and services with your child. Those will likely be done by Google Meet or virtually because of the limitation on visitors into our school. But special education instruction, as well as physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, those types of therapies will all continue on. Those will not change. Now, the way they're delivered might slightly as far as just keeping your child safe. So the physical therapist will certainly take precautions for herself in working with students, which will help keep students safe too. High ability instruction, so kids that require that advanced curriculum, that will not change either, as far as kids will continue to receive that. Specials classes, we touched on that a little earlier, but our specials classes will remain as they are now. Art, music, library, phys ed, and STEM class, which is Project Lead the Way, science and technology. Those classes will still be offered. Those teachers right now will be walking to the classroom to deliver those to kids in their room instead of having the kids come to their room. That will save a lot of people touching the same desks. But we can still bring all the supplies down and offer the same art class or the same class just in the classroom instead. But the good news is all of those will be offered as they always have been, which is 40 minutes a day each day for our students. Mentioned a little earlier, things like clinic or medication drop-off. Maybe your child forgets their lunch and you bring it in. Those things are all still fine, but what'll happen is we'll have tables out front. So if a child forgets their lunch, you need to bring it to school, you can come in those front doors. You can leave it on the table. We have hand sanitizing stations there. You can use the buzzer to let us know you're leaving it, and then we'll come out and get it and deliver it to your child. So we are going to limit visitors into our office area, but we are still open and available for you to bring things, drop things off, that type of thing. So we'll continue with that. And our nurse will be able to still interact with you as well. Let me see here. Oh, a couple questions here. Field trips, PTO events, a good question. Right now, field trips are not going to happen, at least particularly this semester. We just can't put that many kids on school buses, go to an off-site. Honestly, most have been canceled by the museum or by the group. A lot of places that normally host us are starting to reach out and saying they can't do that right now. But for our part, we're not going to do that until we get to a safer place, which I personally, it makes me sad because we love field trips. We do great field trips here at Creekside. But we will try to get those started back up as soon as we can, because those are an important part. We will do virtual field trips, and there are some really great ones out there. So we're not going to stop trying to expose our kids to the greater world. We're just going to have to do it in a different way. PTO events, those are right now on hold as well, particularly big gathering events, our bingo for books, our donuts with dad, muffins with mom. I mean, we have so many. Spring carnival, those won't be able to happen. We just would not be able to safely put 1,000 people inside of Creekside all at once. My hope is that we're able to still hold those sometime this year. Obviously being optimistic, maybe this whole thing is over as we move through the winter or the spring. And if we're allowed to start doing those events again, I can guarantee you we will. I have the calendar from last year and from all the years in the past, and that's one way I build the calendars for the next year. So I will not forget about any of those events, like muffins with mom and donuts with dad and all those, and we'll get those rescheduled as soon as we can. Aiden asked about a fourth grader and a kindergartner car rider. Can they go in the same entrance, or does it have to be separate? That's a good question, and this process has not changed for us. They can go in the same entrance, and really you can pick the line that you wish. Now, by default, typically if you have the front line, by the way, for anybody that's new to Creekside, the front line is K through 1. The back car rider line, it's really kind of the side. It is second, third, and fourth. It has more capacity, so that's why the extra grade goes to that line. You would normally, in the past and also this year, you can pick one and just use it. I would say probably stick with one. Don't try to jump in the shorter because your kids might get confused. And also the car rider line folks get to know you really well, and they know your car, and they're very helpful like that. I would say at the very beginning, maybe choose the front line because you have a kindergartner, and I think your kindergartner will walk in the door right by their rooms. Your fourth grader probably knows how to get to class very easily, but you will use the same line for both, and that's not a change. And anytime you have a question on the car rider line, just ask the folks that are on duty. Those of you that have braved the car rider line know that it's very safe, but there's a lot of people doing it, and it can be stressful for folks. On our end, we're not stressed. We'll take as long as it takes, and we'd rather people be slow and safe than blowing through our line and trying to go too fast. So take your time. And I always send an email right before school starts with lots of reminders about safety in that line, and I'll do that again. Library, Melissa, right now we're working on a safe process for kids to have access to library books. I've read some things from different library associations, so we'll make sure kids have access to library books. And Mr. Weimer will work really hard with that and what other services he can provide to our students. Yeah, the question about parents helping, what I can really see, and as a former classroom teacher myself, I loved parent volunteers being in the classroom with me. And I always had them do bulletin boards because that was a personal weakness of mine. And they were so much better than I was at making those beautiful boards. But I could see teachers sending home projects for parents that wish to help out and send it home, and then the parent can do it at home and send it back in. Right now with limiting visitors, I doubt we'll have many folks into the building. But again, this is temporary. This is not forever. And we'll get folks back in as soon as we can physically. But for now, I'll bet there's still things parents can probably do. A little plug for our PTO and other things you can do. Box tops still exist. They scan in now instead of cutting them out, but collect box tops. Kroger, if you go to Kroger and you haven't already denoted a group for your points, or if you have already, just switch it to Creekside. Just don't tell the other group I said that. But those Kroger points are actually super, super lucrative. They don't hurt your gas points. You still get the points, but we get a check about 2 or 3 times a year from Kroger, and it usually pushes $1,000 per check. And we're able to use that for things like field trips in our student fund, buying stuff for our kids. We do it all the time. And so things like Kroger points, all those little programs that you can do, they help us. And actually box tops is still very helpful. So those would be nice things too. The question, do we bring in items from last year like library books on Meet the Teacher Night or send them in the first day of school? I believe at this time we're going to ask for them the first day of school. Now, don't overburden your child. They don't need to bring every single item on day one. They could bring some on day one, some on day two, some on day three. We're not in a hurry. We loved it in the past. We could have you bring all that at Meet the Teacher Night so you didn't have to even worry about that on Wednesday. But because our teachers will all be outside and I don't want them all trying to carry in 1,000 pounds of supplies back into the building 2 days before school starts, I'd rather folks hold on to that. And just send them in on the first day of school or just sometime in that first week. And we'll handle and process all of those items. Okay, I'm looking down my list of reentry plan items, and keep the questions coming. You can type them in, or again, if you haven't been able to and you just want to jump in and ask it, go right ahead. Let me see here.
Well, Dr. Hayden's looking for more items. I would ask if anybody knows someone who's looking for a job. We do have CARES Act assistance that are posted, and those are part of the federal dollars that we received to help with both enrichment and remediation that needed when we went to at-home learning from March 13th to the end of school year. So if you're looking for something to do and you'd like to be a part of Creekside's family or any of the other school families, we have 23 positions. that we're trying to fill. And I will tell you right now, we have not had that many people apply. It's been posted for a few weeks. So if you know someone or you feel like, hey, you know what, I could do that during the school hours and I'd love to do it, just log online to apply for that. And then Dr. Hyden will take care of the interview process and get going.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for that plug. That's right. We have 4 for Creekside specifically. We're hiring 4, and these folks are going to be working with all of the kids when they come back. We'll be doing testing right off the bat to see where our students are in reading and math. And then we'll begin working right away because we know we haven't gotten to see them since March. And so we want to get going right again with the in-person instruction part. Matthew asked about school supply lists. Yes, those are on our website now, Matthew. I sent an email a while back, but newer register folks probably didn't receive it. So our website, franklinschools.org/Creekside, or you can just go to franklinschools.org and navigate to Creekside, but it's one of the 4 stories across the bottom. If you go there on your phone, you have to use the little arrow to like scroll through the stories. I know that actually some folks don't see the other stories on their phone, but if you go on a computer, you'll see it. But yeah, those are on our website. I will send those out again by email as we get closer. And again, if I start sending too many emails, give me that feedback too. I tend to start pushing more and more and more info. Let's see, what other questions do we have, about Creekside, about our reopening of Creekside? I've tried to cover everything that was in our reentry plan. And looking at the categories, I think we've hit on just about everything, but certainly any other questions or anything else that I can answer, I'd be happy to. Okay. Well, as I'm wrapping this up, jump in if you've got a question, or if you're in the middle of typing it, keep typing it and hit enter so I can see it, because I don't want to miss your question. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow evening. I'll send the link for that so you can see it, and then we're going to post this one, and I assume the next one as well, so everyone can watch it who weren't able to join us today. Travis, no, I got your question, and I didn't mean to ignore you. I really didn't. You're asking questions that are a little bit above me. I'm not a medical doctor, so we're following the best guidance that we can, as Dr. Clenvinian said. And we totally appreciate that this is a crazy time and that nothing is for sure. It's a brand new virus. So we're all doing the absolute best we can. We're making the best decisions that we can. So no, I didn't mean to ignore you, Travis, in any way, but I don't have an answer to your question. Without any other questions,
Dr. Hyden, I have a couple things. First, I want to just reiterate a big thank you to all the parents that have been a part of us in this at-home learning in this pandemic. A year ago, we'd have never thought anything like this would happen. In January, as news started to come out, we thought, okay, we're going to be okay. But obviously on March 13th, the world changed for us, and it continues to change. And until we get a vaccine, that's going to continue to be the case. And I agree with Dr. Hyden. Our job is to be educators and to do the very best job we can to provide that safe learning environment for everybody, to provide so that your kids can grow to their fullest potential. And that's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to look to the experts and what they provide in information to us, because that's the best we can do as well. And that's part of our guiding principles of collaboration. And ultimately, it comes down to trust. We love your kids, and we hope that you trust us to do the very best job, make the very best decisions for your kids. And that's what we're doing as we move forward with our plans. I will tell you, we spent hours putting these together, and the teams have done a great job. We did have parents on the committees. We did have different administrators. It was led by a central office team to facilitate core group discussion. We've continued to have opportunities to engage in conversations, but we know that there's going to be some questions we can't answer, like the medical information. And I would encourage everybody, if they have a specific question about that, Dr. Box is at the Indiana Health Department. She is the state physician. She is the one that is kind of guiding the journey for that. In Johnson County, it's Dr. Mormon. Please reach out to one of them, and they can help provide some of those answers. At 2:30 today, the governor and Dr. Box will be back on for their weekly communication about COVID-19 and what's going on. And we want to just do school, get back to school the best we can. And so with that, if you've not registered for school, please jump into Power School and register. Or if you know of a friend that hasn't registered, we want to try to get as many pre-registered kids as possible so we can make sure busing is set up, classrooms are set up, and all those different things. And as I said to start with, the reentry plans are designed to share information with mom and dad so you can make the very best decision for you and your family. We're going to be there to work alongside and collaborate. And hopefully a year from now, this is in our rearview mirror and we're just going back to a new normal life. But until then, I just want to say thank you for trusting us. Thank you for spending a few moments here, 60 minutes, hearing about our plan, hearing what we've been doing, and trying to answer questions. I will be hosting a superintendent's coffee virtual one next week for the entire district. And as Mark said, there'll be another one tomorrow night for other parents and for you to come back in and be a part of the conversation again. And so I just say thank you very much for allowing me to be here and listen to your questions, concerns, and comments. And I'm looking forward to the school year. I'm looking forward to getting back to everybody interacting and growing, learning, because we know how to do school inside the four walls. We're learning how to do it on the virtual world, but it's still better on the inside when we're going every single day. So thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Clendane. And 2 quick questions just came in. I want to hit those before we go. When will we know who our child's teacher is? This is the same as it has been in the past. You'll be able to log into the Power School app or on the website on July 31st. That's the Friday before the school year starts on Wednesday. The portal will open then and you'll be able to see that information. If you made a teacher request, I think I was able to grant all of those. So you can rest assured of that. But if you didn't, our teachers worked really hard on those class lists and they took a lot into account and tried to build really great classes. So July 31st. And then on supply lists, yeah, I agree. They're too heavy to carry in one day. And maybe even backpacks can't fit them all. So don't do that. Maybe just send in some on Wednesday, some on Thursday, some on Friday. Take your time. We're not in a hurry on the supplies. So just send them in as you can. And if you can't send them in, don't. We have lots of extra supplies here. We'll just give your kids the supplies. And we have our fast track and all these other things. So I've always told parents this on supplies. You don't have to do that if you're not able to, or if it's difficult, or if it means making a hard decision. Just skip the supplies part of it. We've got plenty. All right. Well, again, you all know how to reach me. The Creekside Facebook page, you can always make sure you've liked it, first of all, of course, but you can always message me on there. I try to respond quickly. You can always email me. I'm back in the office now, along with Mrs. Limbach, assistant principal at Creekside. And so you can call us here at school as well. But we're able to get back to you and answer any questions that you have. And again, franklinschools.org/register is where you go to register your child for school. Pass that information along if you hear of somebody who hasn't done that yet. But we are very excited for August 5th. It has been too long since we've had this building open. It was sad, this building being closed for that long. It's beautiful. We do a great job here, and we love having everybody together. So we are a family here at Creekside, and we can't wait to have everybody back together. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. Bye.